Start whenever? Okay. Hello, my name is John Cormier, CEO of Watch Facts. I'm here with Paul Duggan, owner of Duggan & Company, one of the premier vintage dealers in Boston. If you're ever looking for a vintage watch, Patek, Rolex, etc., Paul's the person to speak with. Paul's been in the business for over 30 years. He knows exactly what he's talking about. The collectors buy from him. This is a person that you should listen to as well. Today we'll talk to Paul about the vintage watch market, what's going on and what moves it, what makes the watch collectible, the complications, what brands to get into, things of that nature. So if you have time to spare, listen to this interview. Paul, thanks for taking the time to meet with us today. Really, really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Can you just tell people a little bit about who you are? I mean, I've known you for a while, but I don't think people appreciate the caliber of person that I'm speaking with today.
I started with watches really as a hobby back in the 70s, and originally antique clocks and then antique pocket watches. In the early 80s, the wristwatch collecting field just exploded. Prior to that, no one was into wristwatches. All of a sudden, 82, 83, and beyond, everybody was into wristwatches. And all those watches that sat in safes and boxes and jeweler's stock were being dug out of the woodwork by the dealers and restored and put into the market. My background was in repair, so it helped a lot. I was able to look at a watch and see what was wrong, what was original, what wasn't, what it needed, and then prepared for the marketplace. And in the early days, we were selling old Hamiltons and Elgins and Boulevas and some Rolexes, occasional Patek Philippe, in large quantities. And it was a great time. It was like the birth of a new collecting field.
Well, and today, so what are the top 5 brands?
Today it has transitioned to more the luxury, top quality Swiss brands. Number 1, Rolex. I might have said Patek Philippe a few years ago, but things change around, the market changes. Also Vacheron Constantin, Audemars Piguet, Cartier, Jaeger. I think there are a lot of other, maybe a little bit lower tier brands, but those are probably the top.
In terms of collectability, people talk about the brands, but what are the 5 things you would think that makes a watch collectible? Materials, complication, rarity?
Yeah, a little bit of fashion. Like for example, right now Rolex sport watches are really popular. People are wearing them, both men and women, as a fashion statement. People are collecting them because the variety and the history and the investment potential really far and away right now. Rolex is probably leading the collectible field. I think if someone's interested in that and they want to put some money into a watch, it's probably one of the best investments you can make.
So you mentioned Rolex. So like which model?
Probably top is Daytona, Submariner, the sport models, GMT, Explorer. These are all like so-called tool watches that were originally designed for some purpose. I myself collect watches from the 50s, mostly with box and papers, and not the real rare ones, the more common ones, because I think they have a lot of potential. They're rare and in nice condition. Eventually they'll have their day.
Well, so people talk about, so you mentioned the Daytona. Great watch, but the Daytonas, they all pretty much look alike. Recently Rolex changed and put the Cerakote bezel, but the prior 2 versions, one had the Zenith movement, the other has the Rolex in-house movement. To the normal person, they look the same.
Yeah, but to the collector, there's many differences,
right?
Many subtle differences. The numbers on the bezel, the printing on the face, the style of buckle and bracelet. Probably in a steel Daytona, there's maybe, 8 or 9 variations now.
Interesting.
And to the layman, it might look like there's only 2, right. White dial and black dial. But there are a lot of other variations. And some of the earlier ones, the first year of Zenith, where they had spacing in the dial between the print, very collectible now.
People don't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an opportunity to find something good. Once in a while, or a sleeper, undervalued.
So what about materials? So there's Daytona's in steel, but gold, rose.
Yeah, it seems today steel is the most popular. Might not be the rarest, but everybody wants a steel one. I think some of the rarest are gold, and they're probably still a bit undervalued. In the pre-Zenith Daytonas, the old manual wine, the gold has gone up in the 400,000 range. It's like a Paul Newman or something. The more recent ones are starting to be collectible.
What about complications? And in terms of a collectible piece, how does that influence the desirability or the appreciation of a watch?
If you're talking about maybe Patek and Audemars and Vacheron, the more complicated pieces with a chronograph, a petrol calendar, moon phase. In earlier times, those were the watches that only someone very wealthy that really appreciated watches would invest in, so they're very rare. They're even rarer in great condition. They're really the top of the collectible field in Swiss brands. For Rolex, there was never too much in complications. They have the moon phase, which is extremely rare and very desirable. And today they have basically the automatics and the chronographs. A couple new models like the Sky Dweller. But the collectors usually start with a more simple version and then work their way into the complications.
Okay.
As the budget grows.
Right. Makes sense. Makes sense.
And the nice thing is you can always trade up what you bought before and get into a better and better piece.
So what about auctions? Some of these pieces you just can't find on the secondary market. Obviously, there are the trade shows that we go to, and you can find some pieces there. But what about auctions as an opportunity to get into a collectible piece?
A lot of the greatest watches in the world end up in auctions.
Because people know what they have.
They really do. Or they don't know what it's worth. So you have a great rare piece, you're not sure what the market is, maybe nobody's sure. Put it in the auction and then, you kind of let the market decide. 2, 3, 4 people are interested in that watch. It could bring much more than you expected, like this $11 million Patek chronograph that just sold. I mean, what was the estimate? I think 3 or 4?
Correct.
Yeah, that's a few people with money wanted it.
But that one was because it was a stainless. They only had I think made 4.
Stainless, only 4 made. I think only 2 ever on the market.
Right.
Yeah, that's real rarity. That's the exception, but it's good publicity.
It is. It is. In terms of, so we talk about auctions. I think auctions are great opportunities to get something that's fairly priced. I guess particularly if you're also a seller and you know what you have. What about, there's my mother used to say if you buy something pre-owned or used, you're getting someone else's problems. And auctions don't really come with a warranty, they come with a condition report based on, Sotheby's, Christie's, their watchmaker.
They're experts in evaluation.
So how do you, when you buy watches, either from consumers or other dealers, what is your inspection process to ensure that you're not getting the short end of the trade?
Well, actually, I don't agree with your mother on the first thing. When you're buying a pre-owned watch, someone else took the depreciation.
That's true. I agree with that.
That's a big depreciation from brand new retail to a nice pre-owned. And those opportunities are at the auctions, but yes, you better really inspect it. Most of what's in auctions is very good, nice quality, sometimes even unused, new old stock quality, but there is an element of maybe people who can't sell their mistake somewhere else trying to put it in an auction.
Right.
So have someone who knows what they're doing, look at the watch, check all the points, the case, the dial, the movement, the bracelet, open it up. You can go and ask at any reputable auction house, ask their staff to open the watch and look at it. You can get their opinion. There's other people around you can ask. Look at it yourself, try all the functions, so you know what you're buying.
But you're a former watchmaker, right? And you've been in the business over 30 years, so you've seen a lot of watches. You've to kiss a lot of frogs. For someone who is a novice, you're not a mechanic, you can't pop open the hood. If it's a car, the engine belongs to the car, but for a watch, the most important component is arguably the movement. So how does a consumer who is getting into the business, not getting into the business, but just getting into the industry.
Starting to collect.
Correct. How do they, you mentioned some brands, okay, that's great, Vacheron, Patek, Rolex, but so does the person trying to counterfeit that or cheat someone else. They know that those are highly desirable as well. So as someone who actually wants to get into become a true collector, like how would I protect myself?
I think you have to enlist some help, and that help should be someone you can trust who's knowledgeable, a dealer, another collector. There are watch collecting groups you can join. The most important thing is to buy with some kind of recourse, some kind of guarantee from someone reputable. For example, we have like a 30-day return, but we'll honor any issue that ever comes up in originality forever. And some of the auction houses will too.
Okay.
If there's some surprise in there that no one saw, and you discover it later, send it to Rolex, and they say, well, that component or something wasn't original inside. Then you can return it or correct the situation.
Okay. Now, people talk about there's the new watch, the smartwatch that's coming out there. That has affected some of the Swiss watch sales. How has it influenced business? Is it the lower tier brands that are getting affected, like the Movados, the Montblancs of the world, or are Rolex and Patek, Vacheron also getting impacted?
I think very little. Yeah, we have some customers that wear an Apple Watch, and it's on this wrist, and over here they're shopping for this wrist.
Okay, it's a new fashion.
Yeah, which is cool,
Right.
To me, the Apple Watch it's cool. It's more like a communication tool than a watch.
Right.
And I think the price point is not at the levels that we normally deal at.
Is the younger generation still buying mechanical watches?
Yeah. I think not the youngest generation, but if someone hits a point in their life where they have a good job and a good place to live, have some extra money, it's a common choice. And it's a good choice because there are so many things you can buy in the luxury market that don't have a resale value, don't have a trade-in value. I think watches might be the top.
Watches, art, jewelry.
Yeah, watches better than jewelry. Maybe name brand jewelry is very good.
Right.
But watches are all name brand.
True.
And definitely a very liquid item.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for your time, and I really appreciate the time that you spent today educating me on this market. And if anyone is interested in a vintage watch, Patek, Rolex, Vacheron, please contact Paul. He's located in Boston. Thanks for your time.
All right. Thank you, John.
So what